Hey family, welcome back to Black and Classic Podcast. If you're new here, I'm your host, Brittany Monet. It's nice to meet you. And please do not forget to hit subscribe and join the Classic fam. I'm so excited to be back. A little bit of a different vibe going on, okay? So Black and Classic is going to be entering or returning to, depending on how you look at it, a new chapter. Now, moving forward, the podcast will continue to center on Black life and culture, but I'm going to do it with more intention. Now, I'm not totally abandoning certain topics, but I want to be more true to me. And I think the podcast definitely lost that essence. So we're going to be getting back to our roots. Now, if you're new here or if you kind of just joined recently, this might feel like a little bit of a shock. But if you've been here from the beginning, you'll understand. This podcast started as an expansion of a blog that I had where I decided to take my thoughts off of paper and do them into this digital form and really sit down and talk with you guys instead of, old school typing things out and, sitting down and just putting it out on a website. I wanted to step into this podcast space, but I feel like along the way, I've lost those topics and what I was really tapping into. So I definitely want to get back to that. That's not to say that we won't be discussing certain things, but we're definitely going to shift, right? So we're going to be getting back to a thoughtful analysis, honest reflections, just a more focused approach to how we talk about the things that are happening around us. I don't want to pigeonhole myself and I don't want to get stuck talking about things that I truly don't care about, to be honest, right? So this is a new return. It's going to feel very intentional. And I don't know, I plan to continue that way. I definitely do. We're going to be discussing some of our same topics, but definitely with a purpose this time. Okay. So with that being said, let's jump in.
Blackness, that black power, that black pushing them to identify with.
Now, I've been noticing something lately, and there's a real hunger right now for the Black family and for Black community. And you can hear it in how people talk and the way they praise and what they're rushing to defend. There's this longing for togetherness, for unity, for something that feels kind of rooted and stable in a world where, nothing, right? Nothing feels rooted and nothing feels stable. It's really anything but community, anything but love, anything but having that connection to the people around us. Those days have seemed to eluded us. They're far and they're gone and they're not here anymore. And what's often missing from that conversation is our ability, I should say, to sustain that appetite and that hunger for the Black family and the Black community. Because we say we want, right, a Black family. We say we want community. We say we want like unity, right? Word to Queen Latifah, unity. We say we want these things, but being able to actually garner it, right? Hold it, protect it, nurture it. Those are two totally different things. We're really not practicing what we preach. We're saying these things and we're talking about it and we're sharing it on social media, but we're not actually practicing those things. So what this tells me is we need to sit with this a little bit longer, right? And we really need to take a look at this, because when you say you're hungry for something and you want something, you might not be as hungry as you believe you are, because if we were truly hungry, okay, for the Black family and for community, then we wouldn't feel fulfilled by anything else, right? We wouldn't be so easily distracted by these false narratives that we hear, by conflict, by, all this dysfunction that ultimately leaves everyone around us, everyone in our community feeling smaller than what they are and then how they started. So we have to sit with that right now, okay? So that's the whole point, right? Like, let's sit with that idea of longing for this, but actually doing something different in the long run, and what that can mean and what that looks like, and how that's unfolding around us, because I see it all the time. I'm telling you, if you are online, you see it all the time. And I feel like in the last few weeks, this has definitely been prevalent, because there's this tension between what we say we want and what we actually do. And it really stood out to me when people got really loud and really, just want to make sure that mic is on, really loud and sharing a lot about T.I., right, and his family unit, especially as it related to the beef with 50 Cent, which I feel like is still going on. It kind of feels like all of 50 Cent beefs are never ending, right? His beef with Ja Rule was so long, but in this one, the focus really wasn't on the music. It wasn't on the competition. It quickly came about the family, right? About the loyalty, about protection, and about what it supposedly means to be rooted, because 50 Cent didn't come as hard as T.I. did. And everyone was discussing why that was. So now let me tell you, I feel like at this point, we should be familiar with what happened because it's still going on. But if you aren't familiar, let me let you in on what's going on. So T.I. took to like social media. T.I. did some interviews. I feel like he sat down with just different people. I feel like he sat down with like Gilly and Wallow on I think, what is it, like $1 Million Worth of Game or something like that. He sat down with a few people to challenge 50 Cent to a versus. If you don't know what versus is, it's where they battle their catalogs and things like that. So that then quickly spiraled into like Instagram memes and like petty disses. And they were just kind of going back and forth. And at first it seemed very jokey, right? Like it didn't seem like it was anything serious happening until 50 Cent posted T.I.'s wife, Tiny. Now, many people say this is where things kind of took a turn for the worse, because why are you posting this man's wife? You know what I mean? Why are you posting his wife? So then enters in T.I.'s sons to protect their family, okay? So we had King and Damani. I think some of the other babies also released some tracks or something like that, child. I don't know. It's been a lot and I ain't been following it that close, I'll be honest, okay? But they released diss tracks to 50 Cent. And it was so funny to me because I felt like this was the first time in like hip hop, right, history where a family was beefing with someone, right? Like this was a real like family rap beef. But that is the part that we want to talk about, right? So family, like I was saying, this conversation to me was really about the Black family unit. And I think that's where this conversation begin. So when I sit with that, I think there's, more happening here than people are willing to name or willing to discuss. But what I observed truly wasn't just admiration for the Black family, it was a hunger, right? What we're feeling now isn't sudden. It's this belly ache that comes like, right, that you get from just ignoring your hunger for so long and hoping that eventually it will pass, right? People they weren't reacting to what they saw, but they were reacting to what they want. The ideal Black man with a visible family, right? A unit that appears to be like intact, right? Together. But of course, this is not without blemishes. But that family unit became so symbolic to people in the way that they came out to defend Tiny, right? So we can't also, right, forget about the representation that we had growing up as millennials. I think that's something that is important into understanding why why we have this desire, is understanding just a little bit about what we've seen growing up. So we had television shows on Black love, right? On the Black family, on Black community, Black friendships, right? I'm talking about, of course, we got our Living Single, Martin, Girlfriends, the Cosby Show, A Different World. I mean, just about every show that was on UPN in the early 2000s, they represented and stood for stability, for belonging, for like something solid, right? Again, something with roots. But now we have a culture that often feels very disconnected, very fractured. We now have, toxic R&B. We have marriage and all these housewife shows where ain't nobody on the show married. And then you have, of course, these just crazy reality shows where you get friends together and they're fighting each other and throwing drinks at each other. That's what was Black love, Black community, Black family. It has now dissolved into us entertaining and digesting all of this dysfunction and chaos. So again, we have to take a look at that tension between what we say we want and what we actually do. It's two different things. Now, the meaning to me, right, behind the reaction of people, praising these things, it matters, right? Because we clearly want the Black family and community, and we want to be rooted and to feel together. So in this wanting and in this, wanting to feel whole and not so unstable, and wanting to have this like community and this safety and this shared identity, we have to really get serious about what we're avoiding and what we're not focusing on, right? Because if we don't get serious about that and sit and discuss it, then we're not exposing ourselves to the threats, to what's taking us away from what we say we want, right? What is out there that's harming us? What's out there? What are we digesting? What are we consuming that's threatening the very thing that we praise and the very thing that we so eagerly post all over social media? What is that thing that's threatening that? And so I just want to continue to sit with that thought and to really think about that as we go, right? So for me, when I'm looking at this, I don't feel as though the issue is we don't value Black love. I don't believe that's the issue. Honestly, I think we praise it. I think we do it quickly. I think we do it loudly. Anytime there's like a cute red carpet moment, we're like sharing it and posting it. And we just love that. And we understand the importance. Again, we're millennials. We grew up seeing these shows and knowing how much it meant to us and how good it felt to see that. So there is, right? There is this deep down desire for it. But again, there's something threatening that. There's something coming against that. And I mean, listen, I have my ideas, but you guys really have to let me know what you think. And so that's kind of where I believe the contradiction lives, where we say, we want this thing, we desire it, but we honestly behave in a totally different manner. And we say we want Black family, but we consume its conflict. And we say we want, community, but then we entertain all of the dysfunction in our community, and then we say we're hungry for it, and we desire it, but we keep feeding ourselves things that don't nourish that, right? Don't, again, sustain that appetite. We get online and we get on social media, and now we're debating, high value men and 50-50, relationships and $200 dates. And we have all of these conversations. And to me, it's just noise that takes away from really cultivating what we say we want. Because the moment we talk about praising the Black family, we almost immediately, right? We immediately pivot and go right back into an obsession with fast love, right? The hookup culture, with sliding in the DMs and the public disrespect. The same, family unit that we desire then shifts into, well, having a broken home is inevitable in the Black community. And to me, that's not true, but that's something that we've learned to consume, that type of dysfunction and that type of chaos. And then again, online, Black men and Black women, the way they speak to each other online, I mean, in real life alone, right, just tells a story that does not match what we praise. The Black love, the Black excellence that we love to reshare and post and comment, it does not reflect that. So the same way that, Black men and Black women talk about each other publicly, especially online, I think that is really, doing damage, because we're seeing it all day, every day. And the damage is not just emotional, right? This is like a cultural damage where it's fracturing the trust that we have in one another. And then it teaches us to be suspicious of one another. And it makes unity feel like a fantasy instead of something that's more of like a practice, right? And then again, if we're honest, it really reveals that maybe, hear me out, maybe we like the idea of a Black family, but we do not want the responsibility of a Black family, because we can talk and share and post all day long, but when it comes down to really doing what it takes to sustain and to have a Black family, that's the part I don't know if we're ready for, because our behavior does not show that. Now, if you really, listen closely and pay attention, you'll see the contradiction. It's not hard to see, right? We praise T.I. and the Black family, but then on the flip side, we normalize, right? The narratives that make those things nearly impossible to hold, to have, to sustain, right? We now believe this. I mean, just all the narratives, right? Like all the gender wars, all the constant distrust, niggas ain't shit, bitches ain't shit, all these different things. And then we reduce our partnerships into these transactional affairs where it's not even about the love and the family aspect. Now it's about money, and that's crazy. And then you got people just doing it for the plot, right? Doing all these performative things and not really thinking about the love and the family and the community that we need. Because to be fair, none of that feeds our family. None of that feeds our community. And social media has become one of the clearest mirrors that we are truly disconnected. Period. At the end of the day, we are truly disconnected. I think we have the same thought, the same hunger, that same desire, but it's fractured. It's fractured somewhere. And not only that, we've allowed social media, to come in and further sever a community that wants to be united, right? So that contradiction, now this is something I feel like that happened maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you aren't familiar with Earn Your Leisure podcast, they're more like a financial literacy podcast. So Rashad Bilal and Troy Millings, they sat down with Aisha Diaz, who I believe is like a nightlife girl. I'm not too familiar with her, but in a brief moment that I kind of feel circulated widely, maybe it was like viral, maybe just in my algorithm, but the conversation quickly turned to how much would it take for a man to date you and, for you to like not work and, be in a serious relationship with him because if I'm not mistaken, she's a bartender at a strip club. And now this conversation was, again, it was everywhere. And I want to be clear before I continue on and people get to talking all this craziness, right? What I'm about to say is not about her personally. I don't know the woman to have any real personal thoughts about her, okay? This is just about the premise, like I said, of having these ridiculous narratives go on and on and on. Because again, what she said, I feel like can be a little bit nuanced, but I'm really trying to focus on those repetitive narratives that we just keep falling into time and time and time again. Because for me, I don't know about y'all, but for me, I'll be so over having these same conversations, child. Like, it's only so many times we're going to keep discussing, all these high value men and the man got to have all this money because let's get real for a second. Before we move forward, let's sit here for just a second and get real because again, to me, it's all interconnected, but let's get serious. The idea alone that a Black man has to be disgustingly wealthy to be considered worthy of a companion, worthy of partnership is very popular right now, but also a little bit toxic. I'll say it. And to be frank and to be just honest, I feel like it's bankrupting our community, okay? I feel like we're doing too much and it's not realistic. Now, please do not mistake me. Being a provider and providing for your family, that's not the problem. The framing of it is, right? The framing and the expectation that a man has to have all this money is just highly, highly unrealistic for the vast majority of our community. Let's be honest. And now we're in this place where relationships, partnerships, companionships, it's all been reframed as like a quiet luxury item, right? Like being in a relationship is a luxury because you gotta have X amount of dollars. I think Aisha was talking about $50,000 a month. Like that feels like a luxury, right? Because if you talk about 12 months in a year, what is that, like $600,000? Like, let's be honest. So now we're at this place where a Black woman, a Black man, both desiring love, both want it. But if we listen to all the noise, right, and all these repetitive narratives, we can't afford to be in love because she want to get flued out and he want to AP. We can't afford it. So now we don't go for it. And now when we keep having these same conversations, those kind of conversations aren't building the Black family. It's not going to build any type of safety. It's not going to build any type of unity. There's going to be no roots. You ain't going to get no roots with that. What it does do is build a distance, right? The Black family is just is not going to be a thing. Black men and Black women are going to be pushed further apart from each other, and it builds this resentment towards each other, and it starts to feel like a fantasy that people can't live up to. Not the everyday person, right? Like maybe in Aisha's circumstance, that's normal, but for the regular person, that's not normal. But again, these narratives come. So we start to believe them and consume them, and it's not true. And in thinking about this, now listen, you guys know, over here, I love an analogy, okay? So sit with me as I kind of, take you through this analogy. I promise it might make sense in the end. So as I think about this, right, I'm like, okay, we want real nourishment. We want the Black family, community, and togetherness, right? We want these things, but we keep feeding ourselves fast love, situationships, the quick validation, all these viral talking points. And all that is just empty calories that feel good in the moment, right? They feel good. You eat it up and you love it. But in the end, it's not going to sustain us. It's not going to have us feeling full. Okay. So when I think about this and I'm looking at this, my analogy is kind of like McDonald's versus a home cooked meal. Because when you go to McDonald's, of course, you're gonna get food. It's gonna be fast. It's gonna be convenient. And hey, listen, sometimes it might even be satisfying from time to time, okay? But that is very, very different than a home cooked meal. A home cooked meal is gonna take preparation, right? You gotta get all your ingredients out the cabinet. You gotta clean your meats and do this, that, and the third. Like you gotta get prepared for that, right? It's going to take time. You gotta preheat that oven. You gotta put it in the oven. You know what I mean? Sometimes you gotta slow cook that thing. Like it's going to take time. And then with that, also, it's going to take patience. If you cook everything on high, you might burn it. So it's going to take patience as well. But the end result, always worth it. I don't think there's ever a time when you're like, unless the person can't cook, there's ever a time when you're like, oh no, that wasn't worth it. At the end, it is worth it. And just like McDonald's, to me, you have the fastness, right? The quick hiccups and the gender wars and the transactional affairs, all that's fast and happening quickly, but that's not going to produce anything deeply rooted. It's not going to produce, community and family. So for me, I'm choosing a home cooked meal. It might take me more time. I'm gonna have to prepare for that thing, but that's where I know I'm going to feel a certain level of fulfillment, right? Because if we're being honest, we're not even having, Sunday dinners anymore. Ain't no more big mamas, not literally, not metaphorically, but like we just don't have those spaces where we have that connection, where we can get together, where, all of that love is cultivated, and, we have that family bonding. All of that is disappearing and we desire it, but it's just not there. And instead of acknowledging and naming that loss, we're just kind of, I don't know, like just filling that gap rather with the noise and these fake narratives that we see time and time again. We're going to get that quick, McDonald's meal, and hey, it might be big, but it don't keep you feeling full. Now, for me, being together, feeling safe, having that community, that requires us to like slow down, take a second, and get real about what we want and how we go about it. It requires us to offer each other like mutual respect, have a mutual regard for one another, and then to also stop wasting time on the nonsense, okay? Like stop wasting time on the meaningless conversations, all of the 50-50 and the $200 dates and this, that, and the third. Like cut all that shit out because it does not amount to anything that really produces something that we say we want, right? And so the hardest part, like I said, before, is really admitting that maybe we really don't want this. Maybe we don't, because we are actively choosing things that make it impossible to obtain the thing that we say we want. And to be fair, that doesn't mean that we're in the wrong, because I'm included in this as well. Like I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm, above anybody. I'm including this as well. So that doesn't make anyone bad, doesn't make you evil, doesn't make you wrong. It just means that we now have to get honest. If we're gonna keep every single time we see the Black family, like T.I., we gotta get honest and be like, hey, okay, we say we want that, but why does nobody have it? Because for me, hunger isn't just fed off of what we praise and what we share online. It's fed off what we nurture, which will then, grow. And then once it grows into something, we got to then protect it, right? T.I. nurtured his sons in a way that now as grown men, they're protecting their family. And that was so loud and so visual. And I think that's why everyone was like, ooh, they came hard at 50 Cent because they came in a fucking unit. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just T.I. No. They said, oh, excuse me. And they all showed up. You know what I mean? And that immediately, I think, triggered that feeling and that hunger that we just push down and move past because no one really wants to sit and talk about it and figure out why we don't have those things. And we've just kind of ignored it. You know what I mean? Like every once in a while it'll pop up, but then we just kind of be like, okay, well, whatever. And we just continue on with, the hookups and the slide and the DMs and, all of that fast love. But that fast love is not feeding us. Let's be honest. It's not feeding us. We are not having the family connections that we want to have. We're not having the Black love that we grew up on. And please spare me with the it was television. Please. What you see in the media will ultimately shape some sort of reality because people digest it and then they don't realize that they are then acting it out. Now, with all that being said, right, before I leave you guys, I really want to kind of shift this conversation because I'm not trying to sit here and act like I have all the answers. I don't. I just want to change how we look at this and kind of reorient the way we approach this, because if the Black family and if community are things that we truly want, then we have to do something a little bit different, right? It's not about having more, podcast talks and, saying those different things. We have to make a choice every day to choose something that nurtures the love that we say we want, grows the love that we say we want, and then protects the love that we say we want. And we have to stop divulging into these conversations, into these narratives that do nothing for us. We need to choose nourishment over these false truths, over these, just narratives. Like, please let it go. Let's move on. Can we do that? And slowing down. And remember, it's like a home cooked meal. Okay. It's going to take time. Like you're going to have to get prepared for this. You're going to have patience when you're approaching something, especially when it comes to Black love. You got to think, is this McDonald's or is this Sunday dinner? Like, what am I tapping into? If again, it looks like something that you actually want, because we have to start valuing having stability over these fantasies, having the mutual respect, right? That mutual regard over the dysfunction. And be clear, this in no way means we have to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect. We're not going to get it right? But it will mean that we have to get super, super intentional. We have to be intentional and we have to really focus on what we do and choose options that speak to our desire, because fast love, all of this constant conflict and these transactional affairs, it might fill you up in a moment. Please understand that's a double entendre. Do not ask me how. Might fill you up in a moment. You get it? Anyways, but that won't build anything that lasts, right? And if we want something that lasts, that real community, real family, real love, that's going to take us to be able to get prepared. It's going to take time. It's going to take patience. It's going to take discipline. It's going to take communication. Like, it's going to take so many things, but that isn't what's going to go viral, right? Like, of course, the work that it takes to sustain these things and to feed ourselves is not going to go viral. But what it will do in the long run is it's going to endure. It's going to endure and it's going to last. If we feed ourselves properly and feed our community properly, it's going to last. So, I don't know. The question to me really isn't whether we want it or not. I think the question really that we need to be asking ourselves are we willing to choose the things that actually feed what we say we want? Are we willing to do that? Because if you aren't willing to do that, then you know your answer. You might not really want the responsibility of the Black family and the responsibility of the Black community, because you don't even choose to feed it and to nurture it. You don't choose that. So that just might not be what you want. And that's okay, but let's get honest about it. Let's get honest about it. And for me, I don't know. That's just something that I think is worth sitting with and that I think is worth discussing. So I appreciate you guys for checking into this, new return of Black and Classic podcast. I really enjoyed sitting down with you guys. I told you this is something usually that I would have just typed out, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I would have typed out and just posted, but I wanted to sit with you guys and just talk this through, right? What does it look like and what does it mean when we say we love Black love? Well, how do we cultivate that and how do we actually sustain that and keep that and have that? So thank you guys so much for sitting with me. Until next time, bye.